Noya is a lonely virgin bum who has the same brain power as a starfish but still managed to date his lifetime crush. However, when the 3 hottest baddies in school suddenly fall for his negative IQ RIZZ, he decides to lose his V-card in the most legendary way by clapping all 4 of them together. It all starts leak any other day, except for the fact that Noya is still getting used to being in love with his hot girlfriend, Saki. After classes, she prepares to leave for her club meeting, so he promises to wait, but she says he can go home alone as long as he doesn't cheat on her. All of a sudden, he hugs her and promises to increase his love so she won't ever have to worry about him cheating. As she tries to pull away and stop him from creating a scene, he continues professing his love until she eventually gets free and asks why he always acts like half of his brain went missing at birth. When he acts oblivious and asks what she means, she explains that he is too stupid to understand a joke, but he reminds her that he had spent years begging for her love before she finally agreed to be with him. After he further promises to never take her love for granted, she accepts that he is a lost cause and decides to match his energy. On the rooftop minutes later, he continues thinking of how lucky he is to have such an amazing love life before a baddie named Mina shows up and asks to talk to him. Without even introducing herself, she confesses her feelings for him, leaving him frozen in shock for a couple of seconds. After telling him her name, she moves closer and asks for his opinion on her looks, so he takes a moment to scan her hot bod before admitting that she is a living definition of the word baddie. This makes her a bit more comfortable, so she explains how she spent the last few months working on herself before presenting a 5-star buffet she made to win his heart. When he asks if she is some kind of psycho, she promises it was all worth it and tells him to at least try the food, so he takes one bite and immediately cries tears of joy. She then asks if he still finds her attractive, and he almost proposes to her on the spot. But when she asks to go out on a date with him, his brain finally nudges back into place as he realizes the trap he just entered. Instead of shutting her down like a good boyfriend, he says that he would have loved to be her man if his heart wasn't already stolen, but she promises to keep trying to win him over. As she gets up to leave, he fights back the tears and stops her before saying that he wants to have a life with her despite already being in a relationship. This confuses her, so he explains that the only way he can experience her love while being with Saki is to date the both of them at the same time. After she agrees to it, he decides to go tell Saki, who has just finished from her club meeting with Shino. When he shows up to talk to her, Shino leaves to give them some privacy, but as soon as he brings Mina out to explain, Saki falls in love with her beauty and asks to hang out. At a karaoke place minutes later, he hypes them both up to make sure Saki likes her. But after Mina starts singing like a frog with a sore throat, they decide to try something else. After she tries to play ball with them and ends up flashing the kitty for everyone to see, Noe decides to pull the trump card and makes Saki taste her food. Upon seeing how much Saki loves it, he asks what she thinks of Mina's, and she jokingly says she would like to take her out on a date. When Noe claims to understand that feeling, Saki tells him to stop playing around because he already has her, but then he gets up to tell her about Mina's confession. As she tries to wrap her head around what he just said, he goes on to say that he can no longer hide how he feels and asks to date the both of them. Saki then gives him a chance to take back what he just said, but he continues yapping about following his heart, so she stands up and proceeds to break every bone in his face. When Mina's begs her to resolve it without violence, Saki asks how she can be okay with him dating 2 girls. After saying that she will do anything to be with him, Mina's begs her to reconsider, but Saki still refuses and says that it's only right for a guy to have 1 girlfriend. Noe then explains that he would be lying to himself if he dates only one of them while having feelings for the other, but Saki still tries to make him understand that it's his glizzy controlling him. Both he and Mina's go on to list out multiple reasons why starting a harem is a good idea, and he even tries to scramble her brain with his chiseled abs. Despite all this, she still refuses, so Noe drops to his knees and accepts that his request is extremely selfish before promising to make sure she enjoys the relationship if she gives it a chance. After she finally agrees to share his glizzy, he remembers that they both need to build a good relationship, so he tells them both to move into his place. As Saki tries to say no, Mina's easily agrees to it, and Noe quickly sends a text to Saki's mom for her approval. At his apartment several minutes later, he decides to go set up their beds, and Mina's offers to make dinner, so Saki finds a spot to sleep on the couch until Mina's finishes. Shortly after dinner, Saki tries to enjoy a peaceful bath, but Noe suddenly offers to wash her back. After she tells him not to worry, Mina shows up to join her, but as she cleans her jugs, Saki starts to see why Noe lost his senses to her beauty. The next moment, Mina tells her not to worry about clapping him when she is around. Saki quickly tries to change the topic, but as Mina continues insisting that they should keep pounding each other like they did before, she decides to spill the beans and says they haven't actually done anything. Hearing this makes Minace excited, but she hides it and offers to help Saki learn about sinful activity by practicing with her. The next moment, Saki storms out and pins Noya to the wall while asking if he wants to clap Minace. After admitting to it, he further explains that he actually wants a three-way, so Saki takes another look at Minace's plot and gets weak in the knees before saying that he can't take it that far. Noya then apologizes for trying to force his depravity on her and promises to focus only on building an amazing relationship with the both of them. As he walks off, Saki pulls him back to ask if he will at least try to get freaky with her, but he refuses, saying it would be unfair to Minace. As Saki then says that she isn't completely opposed to the idea of a three-way, he starts begging for her forgiveness and calls himself stupid for not realizing that she is obviously curious about it. While getting dressed moments later, Saki continues to struggle with her new reality, and Minace's perfect plot makes it even harder to adjust. Upon realizing that she must now know how creepy Noya is, she asks Minace if she still wants to be with him, and Minace says she is actually excited for the three-way. This makes Saki think that she might end up stealing Noya away from her forever. Just then, they enter the living room and see Noya setting up 3 beds together, and when he claims that sleeping beside each other will help with their relationship, Saki accuses him of trying to clap on the first night. He immediately denies it, but she refuses to believe him, so he decides to have his magnum chopped off to show how serious he is.
Whoa.
After Saki tells him to relax, they all get tucked in, but she decides to pay close attention to his every move. Just then, he thanks her for having an open mind, but she stays silent. So Minace tells him not to disturb her before asking if he can move a little closer. As he turns to face her and starts talking about how excited he is to be with her, Saki hears Minace making funny sounds and thinks he has already popped her cherry. After yanking off the blanket and yelling at him, she sees that they are just holding hands and prays for the earth to swallow her up. Thankfully, Noya's 10-kilobyte processing brain makes him think she just wanted something. So he offers to help, but she quickly climbs into his bed to act like she was lonely. A couple of hours later, Minace wakes up to get started on breakfast and convinces herself that acting like a slave to the both of them will get her to the point where Noya won't be able to dump her. After setting up the breakfast table, she tries to get a little more sleep, but then she sees their phones and decides to learn as much as possible about them. She then starts with Saki's phone, but as she tries to look up her browser history, she finds hours of research specifically about how to handle a magnum and give her boyfriend the sloppiest brain he has ever experienced. Just as Minace finds her private Twitter account and a bunch of stuff about wanting to make the new relationship work, she feels relieved, but Noya suddenly wakes up and asks what she is doing. After she admits to everything, Saki also wakes up and asks what is going on. Minace also tries to tell her what happened, but Noya jumps in to defend her and says he was looking through her browser history. Saki immediately remembers that she didn't erase it and asks why on earth he would go through her phone, so he apologizes and claims it was all to figure out what she might want as his girlfriend. After giving him a concussion to induce amnesia, she falls back to sleep with the hope that it will help her forget it. Minace then apologizes for getting him into trouble but tells her not to bother because he knows she was just trying to get better at being an assistant girlfriend. By sunrise, Saki completely forgets about everything and focuses on how good Minace's cooking is. When she suddenly asks which class she is in, Minace says they are all actually in the same class, but Noya and Saki get confused and ask why they have never seen her at school. She then explains that she took the last few months off to work on becoming the perfect girlfriend. Upon hearing this, Noya starts asking how she could make such a sacrifice, while Saki genuinely gets worried that she might be a psychopath. Their reactions cause Minace to think he will lose his attraction towards her, so she offers to make more snacks, but that only makes him a lot more worried about her priorities. The next moment, he decides to spend the rest of the day making her study and also tells Saki not to bother escaping when she tries to sneak off. Minutes later, Saki shows him the calculation she used to solve his math test, but when he asks Minace, she panics and runs up to the bathroom. As her fear of getting dumped increases, she decides to learn everything she can from the phone, but after half an hour, Saki and Noya start to get worried, so they knock on the door to make sure she is still alive. When he suddenly tries to call the ambulance, she throws her pride out the window and claims to be taking a massive dump. Shortly after that, she comes out, and he immediately apologizes for putting her on the spot, but she tells him not to worry and proceeds to solve the equation in a matter of seconds. She then shows it to him and expects endless praises, but he takes one look and says she failed every step. As she gets horrified by her own stupidity, he grabs her shoulders and promises to help her learn regardless of how long it might take. Before leaving for school the next day, Saki tells him to keep their relationship secret from everyone, and he agrees to it until she says they also have to act like they don't know Minace. As he tries to argue about it, she cracks his skull and makes sure Minace is cool with the plan before they head out. At school later that morning, everyone in class gets confused because they haven't seen her before, and this causes Noya to feel pity, so he walks over to introduce himself like they just met. As she also tries to follow along, her lonely face crushes his heart, so he decides to tell everyone the truth, but Saki immediately unleashes a brutal combination that shatters his spine before dragging him out. On the roof moments later, he tries to convince her that telling the truth is the best option, and as she tries to attack him again, Mina shows up and says she is more than happy to be their little secret. She then apologizes for accidentally packing their lunch together when they obviously won't be eating together and hands the boxes over before turning to leave. When she says she will eat in the ladies' room to make sure no one sees that they are having the same thing, Saki gets emotional and apologizes for being selfish while hugging her. Upon seeing this, Noya asks if he can tell everyone the truth, but she quickly pulls away from Mina's and suggests eating together in secret instead. Moments later, they get to the highest point on the roof to hide from everyone else, but Mina starts asking why they're going this far for her. After Saki promises to find a way they can continue eating together, Noya loses it as he never expected her to be so understanding. Just as Saki Karat chops his skull and reminds him that they are still hiding from everyone else, a teacher hears their voices and starts demanding to see them. Moments after escaping, they run to a corner somewhere on campus and try to figure out a new secret location before Mina suddenly remembers one of her top secret spots and says she always ate there because everyone treated her like a social outcast. After they both shed tears for her, she takes them to a restroom that smells like a backed-up sewer system, and Saki almost cries again as the stench burns into her eyes. Mina then tries to convince her that it's the safest option available, but she continues complaining, so they try to use the back of the restroom instead. This ends up making the situation even worse, as the concentration of turd fumes causes Saki to start crying before she notices the bugs crawling around. After Noya asks if she knows a spot with breathable air, she takes them to the club building restroom with the hope that the clean toilet bowls will be okay for Saki, but she still refuses to eat in a toilet and asks Noya why he would follow them into the ladies section. As she pushes him out, Mina tries to tell her that there are other students around, but Saki ignores her until two girls see them and think they just finished eating each other for lunch. After hiding by the staircase, Noya asks if they can just use the gym storage building instead, but Mina still suggests trying another toilet bowl. Saki almost tries to stuff her head into the toilet bowl, but Noya quickly grabs her hand and runs off. Outside the building moments later, the depraved genius figures that it would be smart to punch a steel padlock and gets surprised when his hand starts leaking. Thankfully, Saki finds an open window, so he lets Mina stand on his shoulder to check if they can climb in. He then tries to sneak a peek at her goods, but Saki immediately stabs him in the eye. Once inside the building, they move everything around to build a fort, and Noya takes that opportunity to apologize to the both of them for being so cultured that his magnum craves two different plots. While Saki supports his self-hatred with a series of verbal assaults, Mina claims to be happy with any situation they end up in as long as she gets to be with him. After several days of eating Mina's Michelin star meals, Saki gets hooked and completely forgets what her regular lunch once felt like. As she hugs Mina and thanks her for coming into their lives, Noya promises to do anything to make them both happy. Mina then tells him not to worry and says she is willing to go as far as selling her melons if he ever goes broke. When he also promises to work on an oil rig to keep her happy, Mina tells them both to relax, but Noya suddenly remembers that he hasn't been giving her much attention and tries to demonstrate his love for her right there. After pushing him back, she climbs onto a stack of stools and says Mina must really like him if she is this dedicated to making him happy. When Mina says she would definitely do something even better, Saki agrees with her, but after thinking about how she has spent the last few days doing absolutely nothing to make him happy, she panics and thinks Mina will steal his heart away forever. The next moment, she jumps out of the window and spends the rest of the day trying to figure out a way to become useful to him. Hours later, she returns home, and he starts asking where she suddenly ran off to, but she tells him not to worry and asks if there is anything he needs. After he flips the question and offers to get her some cake, she completely forgets the mission and ends up being served by him until the sugar rush wears off. She then runs down to the store to defeat Mina at her own game of cooking. But after returning back home with only a pack of gummies, she loses it and decides to make some curry instead. After chopping up every ingredient in the kitchen and setting it on fire, she distracts herself by watching a streamer with massive jugs until the curry starts smoking. Moments later, Noya and Mina try to act like eating her burnt offering isn't so bad, but she has already accepted how useless she is and goes on to spend most of the night sulking in her room. At a certain point, Noya wakes up and sees her breathing like an overworked donkey while trying to get him bricked. When he asks if she needs help, she tells him to shut up and get to clapping, but he remains confused, so she forces him to grab a jug and gives him permission to smash. After he pulls his hand away and says it wouldn't be fair to Mina's, Saki's heart shatters into a million pieces. She then asks if it's because Mina's jugs are bigger and runs up to her room without giving him a chance to answer. As he tries to talk to her, she runs out and leaves a note saying she is going back to her house, which is actually just next door. Mina's, who had heard the crying, then asks if he is okay, and when he explains everything to her, she realizes that she might finally get to keep his magnum all to herself. However, upon seeing how troubled he is, she decides to help him instead of having a night-long baby-making session. After telling her not to worry about anything, he goes up to spend the night writing a love letter and calls Mina's to the window after sunrise to give it to her, but she throws it back, so he spends the rest of the morning reading it out to her. This cultured lunatic then proceeds to spend 3 days trying to win her back, but after pulling every trick in the book and burning through all his accounts, Saki still turns him down and tells him to have fun with Mina's jugs. As he turns to figure out another way to appease her, Mina stops him and promises to make him happy even if Saki doesn't come back, but Noya turns her down and says he would never give up on the both of them. This causes Mina to remember why she fell for him in the first place, so she decides to help and calls Saki out before making him grab one of her jugs. Upon seeing this, Saki jumps to his balcony and threatens to put his hand through a grinder before realizing that Mina only did that so they could talk. After climbing off edge, Saki admits that she ran away because Mina is the better girlfriend, and when Noya tries to say it isn't true, she tells him to shut up and accept the fact that she will never be good enough. She then tries to run away again, but he holds her back, so she asks if there is anything he wants, but he says he only wants to love her. The next moment, his face gets shattered by a brutal punch from Saki, who then says that she hates how he always stops her from doing anything to make him happy. After she almost shakes his head off to know why he won't just let her serve him, he explains that they shouldn't be the ones worrying about him because their relationship was his idea in the first place. Mina then decides to step in and take Saki's side before saying that she also hates how he always tries to stop her from being the good girlfriend. This causes Noya to realize how stupid it is to try being the only one working in a three-way relationship, so he apologizes and asks for a beating as punishment. Mina tries to say it won't be necessary, but Saki immediately snaps his face in half again and promises to always do whatever he asks. While struggling to keep his hands from crashing, he holds himself up and claims to love how feisty she is, and they both go on to make promises of love before she agrees to come back. Despite agreeing to move back in, she tells Mina that they are still going to be rivals, but Mina claims to be happy that they get to live together again. Hours later, she serves up a celebratory dinner to make Saki's return memorable, but Saki immediately starts complaining about Noya, who spent 3 nights fighting the urge to sleep just to get her back. When Saki reminds Mina that they are rivals despite the amazing food, Mina acts like she wasn't just telling Noya to get used to having only her as his girlfriend. Just then, she unleashes the dreaded puppy dog eyes on Saki, and the violent virgin suddenly goes from lifetime enemy to trying to become besties. To help improve their relationship, she offers to teach Mina how to play her favorite game, but after taking a look at it, Mina claims to already have experience with the game. However, after her character keeps getting obliterated by beginner-level players in a matter of seconds, Saki decides to take a break from trying to cover her. When she asks if playing with her is really that much of a hassle, Saki suddenly gets excited for another round and promises to keep playing until she gets her first headshot. She then goes on to spend several minutes using Mina as a meat shield from all the other players, and somehow manages to convince the slow-brained housewife that getting murked every time she respawns is a good way to learn the game. At one point, Saki finally admits that she just enjoys being better than her at something and decides to actually help her get that first headshot. Moments later, they find a distracted player, so Saki carefully helps her sneak over and teaches her how to aim. However, Little Miss Milkers panics at the last second and ends up taking Saki out instead. She immediately begs Saki for forgiveness, but Saki starts laughing and proceeds to take a picture before telling her not to worry because at least she finally gets to have something she can brag about. Just as Noya comes out to figure out what they are so excited about, Mina decides to learn more about gaming from YouTube and shows her a streamer she plans to start watching. Saki then takes a close look and says she is the same Mega Melon streamer she has been hating on for the past few weekends because she plays like a newborn on meth and only gets subs because her fans are addicted to her unusually large jugs. As she continues roasting the streamer, Noya takes a close look at her latest upload and notices their school's uniform in the background. At school the following day, everything goes back to normal for Noya and the girls, but while having lunch in the gym storage building, Mina reminds them of the streamer girl before showing them that she changed the thumbnail on the video they saw last night. This causes Saki's suspicions of the streamer being a regular student to increase, but she decides to focus on the fact that the streamer chick must be too stupid if she can't safely keep her secret hidden. As she starts to brag about making sure the door and window are locked, someone suddenly slides the window open, and they all get shocked when a blonde hottie named Rika slips in. Saki immediately tries to come up with a cover story, but when Rika asks if they snuck out to clap, Noya easily admits to dating the both of them before saying that he would never have a three-way on school grounds. Saki's signature knockout ends up coming a bit late, as Rika climbs in and figures out their situation before getting ready to blackmail them. After Saki starts begging her, Mina notices something about her, but Noya stops her from saying anything before giving Rika his life savings in an attempt to buy her silence. When she declines the offer and claims to make a lot more than that every week, he suddenly grabs her knees and asks if she is an OnlyFans model. He then explains how selling her plot will only lead her down a rabbit hole of fame that will ultimately end in being a deadbeat single mom who rants about hating men like Mia Khalifa. When Mina finally says that she is the gaming streamer, her pores flood with sweat, and she immediately tries to deny it, so Mina pulls up the old thumbnail with her uniform in the background. Saki then turns the tables and says she might just tell a couple of friends about it, causing the independent baddie to start fighting back her tears. Upon seeing that she is about to start bawling her eyes out, Saki tells her to relax and promises not to tell anyone as long as she keeps their relationship secret as well. The next moment, Noya swears not to tell a soul about her channel, even if she betrays them, but Saki immediately makes it clear that the brain-dead otaku is only speaking for himself. Just then, Rika says that they are actually pretty chill despite being in an unholy relationship, and suddenly decides to join the family as Noya's new girlfriend. As she starts trying to make it sound like she is doing him a favor by becoming the latest member of the harem, Mina tells Saki that she is probably just tired of being lonely. However, Reich denies this and claims she just wants to see what all the hype around being in a relationship is about. When she shows off her hot bod and tells Noya that having someone as hot as her will make his life worth living, he admits to finding her extremely attractive. While Saki and Mina both get frozen in shock, he goes on to say that he has even spent a couple hours watching her videos and commends her on being so ambitious before shutting her down. At first, his rejection comes as a shock to the self-obsessed lunatic, so she asks if he is in his right senses and reminds him that she is a famous baddie with over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. He then tells her that it would be stupid of him to fall for every delusional snow bunny he sees, especially because he already has two hotties living with him. Upon hearing this, Mina and Saki's love for him reaches new heights, so Saki tells Rika to take her worthless jugs elsewhere. The next moment, she decides to show him what he just rejected and yanks off her jacket to reveal that she has actually been hiding the real size of her jugs for special occasions. While Saki starts counting cup sizes, Rika tells Noya that he can grab them if he agrees to date her, but he refuses and says he would only fondle the jugs of a girl he likes, even if they look like Saki's unripe melons. As Rika drops to her knees in shame, Saki starts climbing out and asks Mina what she plans to make for dinner. This causes Rika to get suspicious, and when she asks if they are living together, Saki realizes her mistake and tells Noya to get out quickly so they can run away. As soon as he climbs the window, Rika shoves him and nearly snaps his spine in half before jumping out and demanding to live with him as well. She also offers to pay rent and every other bill they have in exchange for a chance to make him fall in love with her, but he turns her down again and says it won't be right to live with a chick he doesn't have feelings for. This causes Rika to go ballistic as she struggles to understand how a depraved psycho like him can be so traditional despite trying to clap two girls at once. She ultimately takes the L but promises to be back before running off. The following evening, Saki and Noya get back from school and find Mina staring out into the yard, so they go to check it out and see that Rika has moved in with a tent. After she reminds them of her promise to come back, they ask how she even found his place, so she explains how she spent hours stalking them after school. Despite having enough reason to call local law enforcement and have her sent to a psych ward, Noya and the girls decide to see if she can last through the cold night. Rika hears this and swears that nothing can stop her from becoming his girl, but that all changes in a couple hours when the cold sends her body into hypothermic shock. That isn't enough. She spots a centipede and immediately runs out into the rain, so Noya suggests going back to her house if she can't handle Mother Nature. When she still insists on becoming his new girl, he asks how she plans to survive the coming days because nothing will make him risk his perfect polygamy by letting her inside. Rika then pulls up her Amazon account and starts shopping for survival gear before setting up her phone to record a wildlife survival video so the YouTube money can keep pouring in. Seconds later, the cold gets even worse, so he suggests wearing a coat, but she reminds him that her subscribers are only watching the nonsense she posts because of her divine milkers. As Noya and the girls watch to see how long she can keep up, she starts an exercise marathon to fight back the cold and also makes sure to get all the right angles so the creeps on her channel have enough goon content to keep themselves warm for the night. A couple minutes into it, Noya and the girls turn in for the night, but Rika keeps going on and replays David Goggins in her head all night long to keep her motivation level extremely high. By sunrise, she logs off the stream right before all her survival gear gets delivered. She then shows off to Noya and the girls before asking if the effort she is putting in has changed his mind. After he tells her to take a bath, Mina and Saki both say that she smells like a moldy sock marinated in toilet bowl water. Unfortunately, this only increases her desire for validation, so she spends a few minutes doing a little more research on survival tactics before heating up a bag filled with water and having a shower right in front of them. She then changes to a new outfit and asks Noya if he still doesn't want to take her jugs for a spin. Later that night, Mina admits to feeling a little concerned by Rika's determination to take their man, but then Saki comes up with a plan and says they'd have to do whatever it takes to make sure no one steals Noya from them. At the time, Noya has just gotten into the bath and tries to figure out a solution to get rid of their Rika problem so he can continue loving Mina and Saki. Just then, the girls call out to him from outside the bath, and Saki claims they have the perfect solution. He then tries to ask what it is, but they suddenly walk in with their best swimsuits on, causing him to forget how to use the English language for a couple seconds. When he finally asks what is going on, Saki explains that showing him their plot will make him happy enough to completely forget about Rika. However, his unusual reaction makes her suspicious, so she grabs his face for an interrogation right before Mina slips and gives him a face full of melons. The moment she pulls back, Saki decides to do the same thing, but after aggressively shaking her ribs in his face, her swimsuit snaps open, and he ends up seeing the unseeable right before she covers up. Saki then gets up to leave, but he suddenly asks if that is all she wanted and says they need to figure out an actual plan for Rika. As Saki tries to attack him for not respecting their efforts to please him, Mina takes over and explains that it wouldn't be fair if he only focuses on getting rid of Rika and forgets his most important mission, which is to have an amazing relationship with the both of them. This causes Noya to realize that he has been taking them for granted, so he decides to show his commitment by feasting his eyes on their plots, while Rika starts to enjoy her new outdoor life. By sunrise, they find her making breakfast on the grill, so Noya decides that he has to do something before she becomes too comfortable. When he tells her to go back to whatever family produced her, she reminds him of her promise and says she can't possibly live with the fact that a loser rejected her. He then explains that there is no way he can go from loving 2 baddies to 3, but she still refuses to accept defeat and threatens to burn him with hot coals if he lays a finger on her camping gear. Moments after eating breakfast, Mina suggests taking things slow with her because she is just too stubborn for a direct approach. After Saki also supports her idea, Rika suddenly crawls out, and they figure that she probably needs to use the ladies' room. As soon as Mina says the closest one is at a convenience store several blocks away, Noe calls a declutter company to come take all her stuff away, but Saki grabs the phone before he tells them the address. She then tells him to relax, but a wave of fear suddenly comes over him, and he asks if she has suddenly become open to the idea of sharing his glizzy with a third girl. She immediately says no, and Mina also tries getting him to calm down until he asks if they are not at all worried that he might actually fall in love with Rika. When Saki asks if his rejection the other day was an act, he claims that he meant it but still insists that having Rika around might change things. After Mina also admits that there is a chance he could fall for Rika, he tries to grab the phone, but Saki holds him back with her foot before they both take turns explaining how much they trust him. This causes him to get emotional for a second, but after thanking them for having so much love in their hearts, he says he might actually fall for Rika. The next moment, Saki pushes him back against the wall before placing him in an arm bar and promising to break it if he keeps talking like a madman. When he reminds her that he once promised to only love her forever, she releases his arm, and he goes on to point out everything that makes Rika seem like an amazing person before admitting that he is just too weak to confidently say he won't eventually fall for her as well. After another attempt at giving him permanent brain damage, Saki thanks him for at least owning up and hands the phone back to him. Moments later, he gets off the phone with the declutter company and tells them to pack up her stuff while he leaves to distract her. When he eventually runs into her and asks to talk, she walks past him and says she is already coming up with a new plan to steal his heart, so he asks if they can make the plan together. Once again, she says no and tells him to stop following her, but he blocks her off to ask if she has even spoken to her parents since she moved into the yard. After saying that she doesn't care what they think of her, Rika realizes that something's up and kicks him in the knee before running off. Upon returning and seeing all her stuff in a van, she tries to get it out, but Noya pulls her away and tells the girls to pack up the rest while taking multiple punches to the face. Just then, she decides to stop fighting and starts yelling that he is trying to clap by force, causing everyone in the neighborhood to gossip about him. While he suddenly increases his grip and says he doesn't care about the neighbors, Saki focuses on damage control and lies that they are only messing around. The next moment, Rika smashes his toes and asks if he has any idea how much she spent on the camping gear. After grabbing her legs and causing her to fall, he promises to pay back every dime, so she makes sure he can't see her goods before claiming that she spent $1 million on everything. Mina and Saki immediately sense the lie, but he still promises to pay her back even if he has to get a part-time job. The driver then tries to hand over the payment for her stuff, but Noya tells him to keep it, so he drives off, and Rika asks why he would go to such lengths to reject her when he already has 2 girlfriends. After admitting that he just couldn't get rid of the feelings he has for both of them, he grabs her by the shoulder and says he would do anything to continue loving just the both of them. As they both also offer to help him pay her off, he prepares an agreement form and says she has to stay away from him forever. However, she suddenly rips it to shreds and grabs his arm before refusing to leave again. Just as they ask why she is being so stubborn, her dad shows up to take her home and says he had to ask almost everyone at school before figuring out where she was. When she tells him not to worry and says she has been staying with Noya, he asks if they are dating, but Noya quickly explains that his heart already belongs to Mina and Saki. Her dad then asks if she has fallen for him as well, but she pretends to hate his guts and says she will consider dating him if he begs. Upon seeing the weird expression on her face, Saki and Mina realize that she actually now has feelings for him. As they start freaking out, Rika's dad tells her to forget about dating a 2-timing scum. But when Noya says he has no intention of dating her either, he starts asking if Rika is too good for him. He goes on to say that he has definitely done his best to raise her, but Noya stops him to say that Rika is actually an amazing person because she was brave enough to start her own channel while still being in school. This makes her dad a lot more curious, so he looks up her name on YouTube and loses it when he sees a thumbnail with her melon spread across the screen. As Saki and Mina get excited to watch him drag her away, Noya starts defending Rika's decision to become an independent corn star. Unfortunately, this only makes her dad even angrier, so he tries to drag her home, but she drops in with a nasty uppercut before refusing to be told what to do. The next moment, her dad grabs the phone and decides to delete her channel, but Noya pulls the phone back and calls him insensitive for ignoring all the work she has put into becoming a star. Saki and Mina try to stop Noya from doing anything else, but then he swears to protect Rika from her dad, causing her heart to skip a couple beats. While Saki and Mina freak out over the realization of what he just did, Rika decides to take some time to think about everything and finally leaves with her dad. Hours later, Saki and Mina try to come up with a new solution to keep Noya from falling for Rika's jugs, but after several minutes of thinking, Saki completely loses it. A little while after that, she leaves to grab some clothes from home, but after she enters the house and grabs a bottle of soda, her mom starts asking questions about her relationship with Noya. When she claims they are both going strong, her mom asks if he has finally popped her cherry, but Saki gets embarrassed and says it's none of her business. After eventually learning that they haven't done it yet, she asks if he has at least made out with her, and when Saki says they haven't, she fears that his glizzy might actually be defective. Once again, Saki tells her to stay out of it, but she starts asking how he hasn't made a move yet despite being so close to such a hottie. Saki then tries to say that she isn't all that, but her mom tells her to stop acting so humble, and reminds her that it was her amazing plot that got him obsessed in the first place. This causes Saki to think back on all the opportunities Noya has passed up before getting terrified as she starts to think he might actually not have enough testosterone to get bricked. After saving her from a mental breakdown, her mom encourages her to awaken his inner beast with the power of her beauty. Several minutes later, Noya tries to get some work done at the table just as she gets back and starts asking if Mina is still up. When he says she has already turned in for the night, Saki walks in with a bunny costume and deep fries the brain cells he was working with. She then drops to the ground and asks if his little Johnny has woken up, but he claims to just be shocked by the sudden outfit choice. This causes her to feel embarrassed, but when she asks if he hates bunny outfits, he goes around her for a good look before saying he loves it. However, when she asks if he wants to feed this bunny with some cream, he immediately says no. She then asks why he is stuck up and crawls closer to tempt him, but he moves back and reminds her of his promise to stay holy until she agrees to do a 3-way with Mina. after she suddenly pins him down and says it wouldn't be so bad if he lost control from time to time. The costume starts to slip, so he quickly grabs it to keep her melons from falling out. By the time he realizes what just happened, she knocks him out and runs upstairs like it wasn't what she wanted him to do the entire time. The next day, she tries to help with the dishes, but Mina turns down the offer and asks why she is in such a good mood. After saying it's nothing, she leaves for a stroll, and Mina decides to do the laundry as well. Then she sees the bunny outfit and starts connecting the dots. When she eventually asks Noya about it, he tells her not to worry because nothing actually happened between them, but also points out the fact that Saki looked amazing in it. Mina then asks if he is into cosplay, but he claims to not have enough experience with it to tell for sure, so she leaves him to finish with his work. The next moment, she returns with a maid outfit, and the depraved virgin loses a part of his brain again before asking to be called master. The moment she says it, he gets blown off his seat and begs for more, so she continues feeding his insanity while Saki remains deluded and thinks all's right with the world. At one point, Mina gets on her knees and tells Noya that she is ready to do whatever he wants, but he asks if she really means it just to be sure. After she says yes, he grabs her shoulder and asks if she can put on the outfit once a week because he won't be at peace if he only gets to see it once. She then acts like he is asking for the greatest service to ever be performed by a maid and says he has to rub her head as payment. He easily grants her wish before they both go on to spend the rest of the day fulfilling each other's fantasies. While having dinner several hours later, she gets up to serve him a second plate, but accidentally calls him master again, causing Saki to realize that she isn't the only one stuck in a delusion. At school the next day, a couple of NPC simps notice Rika standing outside Noya's class, but they all focus on how good she looks while she continues watching Noya to see if she actually loves him. Just as she realizes and falls to the ground, Saki gets back and asks what she wants, but then Shino asks how they know each other. The name she calls Rika initially confuses Saki, so she tries to correct it, but Rika pulls her aside before reminding her to keep her real identity secret. Just as Saki asks if she has feelings for Noya, he comes out to see what's going on, and Rika immediately loses her composure. When she suddenly asks to speak with him in private, Saki tries to pull her away, but Noya stops her and says he would also like to speak with her. On the roof moments later, she gets shocked when he suddenly apologizes for humiliating her with the brutal rejection and pulls off his shirt before telling her to take embarrassing pictures of him as revenge. As she tries to fight off a strong urge to get clapped, he grabs her by the shoulder to continue his apology, but only makes it harder for her to resist. When he finally says that he just can't be around someone who is hot enough to affect his loyalty, the love hormones skyrocket, causing her to get weak in the knees. After pulling herself back up, she thanks him for saving her channel, but he gets confused by the one-liner and asks if that is all she wanted to say. She then also grabs his shoulder and says that it was her dad's constant nagging about school that led her to start the channel. She further explains that building the channel was a lot of work, which is why the way he fought for her made her feel something she had never felt before. Upon hearing this, he expresses how happy he is to have been able to help, but she gets tired of his RIZZ and runs away to stop herself from pouncing on him. After stopping at the staircase, she admits to loving him without realizing that Saki has been listening to the whole thing. Hours later, Rika suddenly walks right into his class and asks to speak with him right in front of everyone. Upon seeing this, all the guys start asking why the school's hottest baddie is talking to the class clown, so one of them decides to ask what kind of relationship he has with Rika. The next moment, she squeezes his arm into her jugs while joking about possibly being the love of his life. After the shameless NPC senses the awkwardness and walks off, Saki grabs Rika's melons and tries to rip them off, but she pulls back and asks why she won't mind her business. Saki then tries to block her off, but she tells her not to bother because she will have countless opportunities to get close to him. When Saki promises to make sure she never gets in between their perfect love story, Rika reminds her that Mina's already found a way to do that. Saki then takes a moment to fight back her tears before telling him to avoid her at all costs. Just then, Noya realizes that she is worried about him falling in love with Rika, so he pulls her in for a hug and promises to stay by her side. Saki initially tries to stop the corny PDA, but after seeing how jealous it's making Rika, she decides to step up the act until Rika gets frustrated and runs off. Minutes later, the teacher asks Noya if he plans to hold Saki on his glizzy for the entire class, so he tells everyone how incredibly lonely she is and apologizes for the inconvenience. When he decides to start the class regardless, she tries to talk Noya out of holding her captive, but he refuses to let go and suddenly sheds a tear to express how bad he feels for letting her become lonely. After the class ends, she tells him that they have sports next to see if that will get him to stop, but he asks if they should get changed together instead. She initially says that is going too far, but when Rika shows up to take over, she grabs her stuff and takes off running with him. After running into the broadcast room, she locks the door to keep Rika from getting in, but Noe reminds her that they still have to get to sports class. Just as Rika suddenly gets a text and runs off, Saki decides to change right there, so Noe turns his back to give her privacy. However, the moment she unhooks her skirt, he decides to wait outside instead, but she grabs his arm and begs him to stay until he says he can see her plot armor. As the sudden wave of embarrassment almost knocks her out, Mina sends a text saying that she made Rika believe that an anonymous person is on the roof threatening to expose her. Later that day, Saki tells Mina how embarrassing it was to be hugged by Noya for an entire class, but Mina starts wishing she could have been the one to experience such love. Just then, Noya shows up and asks what they are talking about, and Saki tells him without realizing that she just set a trap for herself. When Noya asks Mina if she also wants to spend some time in his arms, she turns him down and claims that she doesn't want to make Saki feel left out. This causes Saki to realize that seeing them together might actually affect her, but she decides to take the high road and claims she is perfectly okay with it. She then takes it a step further by telling Minace to start acting like an actual rival, but just as she tries to leave, Noya calls her back and asks if she can watch them cuddle. When she asks why, he explains that being away might make her anxious, so she reluctantly agrees to wait by the door. The moment he pulls Minace in for a warm hug, Saki's heart drops, but she puts up a brave face and acts like she isn't troubled by the fact that he is currently feeling every inch of her jugs. However, when he pulls away and hugs her for the second time, Minace's expressions cause Saki to feel an unholy sensation she never expected. Upon realizing that she might actually like watching them, she closes her eyes right before Minace drops to catch her breath. By the time she opens them back up, Noya tries to check on Minace, but their suspicious position causes Saki to think they have lost all control. The next moment, she walks back in with a dark look on her face and shatters what is left of Noya's jawbone before accusing Minace of being a cultured freak. On the way to school the next day, Rika suddenly decides to walk with Noya and drags Saki to the side before trying to get him to have a study session with her. When Saki tells her that he has never actually gotten close to the top-ranked students despite so many hours of studying, Rika stops walking and falls even harder, as she now thinks he is someone that never gives up despite being a repeat failure. After school, Saki spends several minutes blocking her off from the door before finally getting in and shutting it behind her. The next moment, Noya's brain starts working for the first time since his birth, so he asks the girls if Rika actually has feelings for him. Saki then pulls Minace aside and says they have to come up with a lie to stop him from learning the truth before walking up and saying he is nothing but a below-average NPC. As her harsh words force him to the ground, she further explains that getting 2 girlfriends was a streak of divine luck that an ugly, introverted virgin like him should be eternally grateful for. After believing every word and cursing himself for thinking he could ever pull a baddie like Rika, Noya asks why she has been acting weird around him, and Saki immediately cooks up a story about how girls lose their senses whenever they are in heat. She goes on to say that Rika is only thinking through her plot and would never actually go for him on a regular day, but things quickly take a weird turn when he asks if they also experience it. Saki replies that only chicks with massive melons go through it, so he grabs Minace and tells her to ask for his help if she ever experiences it. In class the following day, Rika shows up as usual and spends a couple of minutes trying to deceive him with sweet words before asking if she can get that study session after classes. Just then, he gets off his seat and apologizes for being so stupid to think that she would have a crush on him. Upon seeing that her reputation as a cold-hearted baddie is getting torn apart in real time, she grabs him by the arm and runs off. When they eventually get to the roof, Saki asks why she is still holding on to him, so she lets go and starts freaking out and tries to figure out how he learned about her feelings, while Saki struggles to believe how someone can be so obvious with their feelings. Just then, Rika asks why he thinks she has feelings for him, so he explains how her face always turns red around him and all the other signals she has been giving off recently, before apologizing for thinking she likes him. After another mental breakdown, she remembers what he just said and asks why he thinks she doesn't actually like him. The moment he says that it was something Saki told him, Rika asks Saki what he is talking about, but she avoids the question. So Noe goes on to express how disappointed he was when he realized that she was just a depraved psycho looking for a random magnum to ride. Rika immediately asks if he has lost it, because only a numbskull would fall for such an obvious lie, but then Saki shields him and says she is just too embarrassed to admit the truth. As he agrees with her, Rika loses it again and says she has no idea what Saki is talking about. But when he asks for another explanation about the way she has been acting around him, she realizes that her only options are to either admit her feelings or accept that she just wants him to drill her buns. She ends up taking too long to answer, so he asks if she actually has feelings for him, but immediately says there is no way she would fall for a virgin loser who hasn't tasted the forbidden fruit despite being in a relationship with two baddies. When she says he isn't actually that bad, he thanks her for the compliment but still insists that there is no way she would actually fall in love with him. She then tries to agree with him but starts an argument instead to avoid having to admit that she just wants to clap. When she suddenly claims that she has been dealing with a fever for the last few days, Saki whispers to Noya to stop arguing with her because admitting to her sinful desires must be difficult. This causes him to accept her lies, but then he foolishly takes it a step further by offering to help her find a new boyfriend to clap and gets his face cracked by a nasty cross. Rika then decides to accept whatever happens next and asks what he would have done if she actually had feelings for him. After admitting that he would be flustered, he goes on to explain how troubling his relationship with girls has been so far, before saying that he would turn her down to focus on loving them to the best of his ability. Upon hearing that, Rika suddenly tells them both to get back to class and pushes them back into the stairwell before shutting the door and taking a moment to see if she can actually accept getting rejected. The next moment, she remembers the number of times she failed before her channel blew up and decides to apply the same principle of consistency with Noya until he accepts her love. Minutes later, Saki starts to feel relieved as they no longer have to worry about Rika, but then she suddenly shows up and admits to liking Noya in front of the whole class. While everyone freezes like they just saw a ghost, Noya gets up and asks if she can repeat herself, because there is no way he just heard what he thinks he heard. After telling him to get his ears cleaned, she starts fighting a mental battle with her pride, but when she eventually summons the courage to say it again, he asks why on earth she would have feelings for him. She then grabs his arm again and runs all the way to the storage building along with Mina and Saki. When Saki tells her to explain herself, she claims to no longer be scared of getting embarrassed and says she will continue professing her love until he falls for her. Once again, Noya asks why she would fall in love with a two-timing scum like him, so she reminds him of the day he protected her from her dad and says he suddenly became attractive to her at that moment. When he grabs her to ask if she is too stupid to realize that any regular guy would have defended an upcoming On Life Ends model from her dad, she calls him the stupid one for thinking there is anything normal about that. She also says that the way he was willing to take on a massive debt to preserve his relationship with the girls was hot, but he reminds her once more that he is a two-timing creep. As she drops to her knees for another mental episode, he tells her to give up on him because he is fully committed to Mina and Saki, but she responds by cracking his skull and saying she has every right to love who she wants. After Mina and Saki help him up, he offers to help her find a boyfriend again, but she refuses and explains how she can't stop thinking about him. To make him understand, she suddenly steals his first kiss and admits that it was her first one as well before heading to the window. After saying that he has to break up with both Mina and Saki before even thinking of dating her, she jumps out and takes off running, without realizing that Shino had been listening to the whole thing. At a riverside hours later, the girls both take turns talking about how life is nothing but sadness and betrayal, because they had both been preserving their mouth juices for the perfect kiss with him, only to have it stolen by an obsessed psycho. When Noya asks if they still want to get those kisses, Saki attempts to unalive him, so he asks Mina, who then says she isn't interested in tasting Rika's lipstick. Saki then asks if he felt anything when she kissed him, but he says he was too shocked to feel anything else, so she explains that a kiss without mutual feelings is worthless. After agreeing with her, he then asks why they are so worked up over it, so Saki reminds him of how good it felt when she finally admitted to loving him after years of failing to win her heart. After she forces him down and says their first kiss has to feel like two stars colliding at the perfect time, Mina also supports her but says he can go the extra mile with her when the time comes. Just then, he gets back on his feet and takes a couple steps before slamming his head into the ground and begging for their forgiveness with blood running down his face. After getting back up, he says that they just have to focus on loving each other to the point where Rika gets tired and accepts defeat. To achieve that goal, he starts by reminding them how much he loves them before saying they have to go back to the basics and start with a nice date. Upon hearing this, Saki realizes that they have never actually been on one, so she suggests visiting a hot springs together, and he decides to handle all the planning. After classes the next day, Saki gets hyped up to go shopping for the trip, But as she tries to tell Noya what she plans on buying, Shino suddenly asks to speak with him in private. He then tries to ask why, but Saki drags him all the way to the mall with Mina's. When he asks why she is so excited to shop, she reminds him of the betrayal they have to put up with, and he immediately apologizes for not being on guard when Rika kissed him. After telling him not to worry about it, she promises Mina's that they will finally get to enjoy each other's company without having to worry about psychos like Rika. However, as she runs off with Noya to get started, Rika quietly follows them to figure out their plans. Minutes later, Mina stops at an aisle to think about the trip and worries that Rika's kiss might cause more damage than they expected. After she convinces herself to focus on getting her first kiss with him instead, she sees a bag of mints and decides to get one for the special moment. Just as she reaches for it, Saki does the exact same thing and immediately tries to act like she just likes the bitter taste of mints. The next moment, Saki drops to her knees and admits that she was hoping Mina would drop her guard so she could be the first to kiss him and use that as a flex to remind her that she was the first to take a spot in his heart. When Mina apologizes for ignoring how she felt, Saki tries to guilt trip her into giving up her desire for a kiss, but at a point, she gets tired of always playing games and tells Mina to do what makes her happy. Unfortunately, the understanding side piece has already decided to sacrifice her feelings as usual and offers to help Saki get closer to him during the trip. Saki then tries to remind her that the trip is for all three of them, but Mina insists that she should kiss him first before dragging her along to shop for clothes. Minutes later, Saki gets disgusted by her outfit and asks if she has a Pinterest board for homeless fashion, but Mina reminds her that the plan is to make only her attractive. Saki then decides to try on the outfit she chose, but after seeing that she looks like Walmart Wonder Woman, she asks Mina if there are actually a couple screws missing in her head. To make matters worse, Noya shows up right at the moment and immediately wishes he could bleach his eyes. On the way out moments later, Rika continues stalking them, and while Noya suddenly notices that someone might be behind them, Mina agrees to work with Saki to have the perfect romantic trip with him. Later that night, she starts packing up, but then Shino suddenly calls to ask about the trip before deciding to get to the bottom of her relationship with Noya. Before leaving the next day, Noya stops to compliment them, and they thank him for it, but when he continues doing it loudly on the train, they start feeling embarrassed. However, Saki decides to match his energy and promises to make sure he experiences a level of love Riko will never be able to give him. Just then, he hears the announcement for their stop and comes up with an idea before they get off. Upon getting to the center of the station, he says it's time to keep his promise to get close to them and proceeds to hold both their hands at the same time. As everyone suddenly starts looking at them, the girls get shy and ask if it is really okay for him to be holding them in public, but he claims it won't be a problem since they are miles away from the usual neighborhood. After making sure they are both okay with it, he holds onto their hands for the rest of the trip and waits at the last stop to explain how being in contact with them is enough to get his blood flowing into little Johnny. While walking to the hotel, they continue noticing the stronger staring, but Noya shows them another couple that doesn't care about PDA. After the guy promises to spend the entire night clapping until she passes out, Noya remembers Saki's promise to work extra hard on their relationship and asks if this is what she meant. After she denies even thinking of that, he apologizes for the misunderstanding and reminds her that they promised not to even think about it, but she admits that it has actually been on her mind a lot. Just as they finally get to the hotel, Rika jumps out of the bushes and grabs onto Noya's arm before saying it was actually easy to stalk them. When Shino also shows up and asks Saki if Noya is actually dating Minace as well, Minace grabs Rika and claims they both came separately. Rika then tries to deny it, but Minace pulls up the photo exposing her identity, so she backs up her lie before Minace runs into the hotel with her. Just then, Noya and Saki also run inside and lock themselves in the room he booked, but after catching their breaths, they start to wonder where Minace took Rika to. The next moment, he receives a text from Minace saying that they should both enjoy the trip together to keep the secret safe, but Noya refuses and decides to go get her back. At the time, she has just gotten wrapped up in a towel and tries to join Rika in the bath, but Noya suddenly climbs in from the wall and explains the secret path on the rooftop they can take back to the room. As she walks back and says he should just focus on Saki, he continues moving toward her and pins her to the glass while reminding her that the trip is for all three of them. After dropping to the ground and almost losing her senses to his RIZZ, Minace remembers the conversation she had with Saki in the store and blinds him with her towel before locking herself in the room and quickly getting dressed. After she runs off, Rika drags him into the water and asks how he could easily act like she wasn't there before promising to do a lot more than a simple kiss this time. He immediately starts begging to go talk with Nagiz, but she tells him to forget about escaping and swears to make sure he leaves with extreme blue balls. When he asks if she plans to finally show him her jugs, she gets disgusted and says she would never go that far. He then asks how she plans to make him obsessed, and she explains that she was only going to show off the visible part of them. This only makes him a lot more confused, so he asks why she had enough balls to kiss him, but suddenly thinks showing a bit of her jugs is too freaky. Instead of answering his question, she asks if he had been thinking of her ever since the kiss, but he claims to only remember feeling surprise and tasting the onion sandwich she had for breakfast. As she takes a moment to come to terms with the fact that her first kiss was meaningless, he tries to leave and says he will never give her an opportunity to sneak in another kiss. However, she holds him back and asks if they can just have a civilized conversation to get to know each other a little better. She also promises not to do anything freaky, but he still tries to leave, so she grabs his shirt and starts baiting for just a couple of minutes. After promising to only give her 5 minutes, he climbs back into the bath, and she sets a timer before hugging his arm and properly introducing herself for the first time. He also does the same and starts to think she might actually just be a regular girl until she says her favorite activity is staring at herself. When he says he has an addiction to bananas, she laughs it off and ignores the fact that he might be talking about a type of banana that cannot be swallowed. He then asks what she hates, and she starts listing out every school activity she has been forced to do before placing her dad at the top of the list. After saying that he hates living a life he will regret in the future, he asks if she has any dreams, so she tells him that her plan is to reach global fame with her channel and leave a mark on the world. As he goes on to say that his only dream is to make Saki and Mina happy, she admits to liking how honest he is but gets a little too close for comfort and almost forgets their agreement to keep it casual. After getting back on track and talking about a bunch of random stuff, he asks what she likes to do in her spare time, but she claims to barely have any because she spends all her extra time working on her videos. She then uses that opportunity to brag about how good her camping videos have been doing, but then he says he has actually been keeping up with her channel for a while. Upon seeing the shocked look on her face, he asks if he didn't already tell her before, so she explains how she thought their recent incidents would have made him hate everything about her. After he says her videos are actually a lot of fun to watch, she gets emotional and thanks him for giving her a bit of his time to talk. Just then, the timer runs out, so she tells him to get going. However, as soon as she stands up, the towel drops, revealing enough cake to put the Cheesecake Factory out of business. Without giving it a second thought, he climbs the fence and takes off running to find Mina, but ends up falling into another bath just as Shino tries to take a dip. Once the shock clears off, he tells her that the towel is actually not covering much, so she hides behind the door and asks when he became a lying scum. He immediately claims to always tell the truth, so she quickly grabs a bigger towel and asks if he is dating Saki and Mina. At the time, Saki has just started searching for him in the hallways, but then she runs into Mina and asks if she has seen him. As Mina tries to come up with a story, Saki remembers that they have to hide from Shino and pulls her away to find a safe spot. Meanwhile, Noya finds himself in a complicated situation as he has to keep his promise to Saki by not revealing the secret while also obeying his rule against lying. When Shino asks him again, he counters by asking why she is so concerned, so she reminds him that she and Saki are best friends. He then says that anybody had the right to be in a throuple, but Shino explains that Saki is just too stupid to know when a relationship is bad for her. As he tries to ignore her very valid points about the risk of dating two girls, she decides to press even harder to make sure he understands that being a greedy creep will only make life harder for all of them. When she asks him for the truth again, he apologizes for not being able to say anything and tries to climb out, but she grabs his jeans and threatens to call for help. After saying that he is no strong heir to incarceration, he tells her to focus on her towel, but she tells him not to bother looking because she has even less plot than Saki. She then starts asking about Rika as well, but after swearing that he isn't trying to start a harem, he commends her on being an amazing friend with the hope that she will finally let go. Unfortunately, she ends up being a lot more stubborn than him and continues pulling until he falls. Right then, Saki and Mina walk in and find Shino sitting on the meat stick that they have been trying to ride for eons. When Saki demands to know why she has suddenly become a traitor, Shino tries to explain but forgets that she is exposed, so Noya pulls her to his chest. While Saki completely loses all faith in life, Mina suddenly starts taking a bunch of photos before threatening to send them to everyone at school if Shino keeps acting like an underpaid reverend sister. Shino immediately gets up to defend herself, but after seeing that she just exposed everything Noya was protecting, she runs inside. Saki then sees that Noya's glizzy never rose to the occasion and hugs him with excitement before assaulting him and demanding to know why he is in the girl's bath. After minutes of explaining, he and Saki tell my case that she can finally stay in the room with them since Shino and Rika have been dealt with, but she still refuses and says she would rather stay with Rika. When they ask why, she claims it will make their whole situation a lot less complicated, but both Noya and Saki realize that she has been acting weird all along and ask what is really going on. They then try to figure it out, but after multiple failures, Mina decides to come clean and says she still feels bad for coming in between them. After she says that helping Saki get close to him is the only way she can feel good about herself, Noya rips his pants off and tries to talk some sense into her. But just as Saki tries to stop him, two random girls show up and struggle to understand what the heck they are looking at. Saki then sends him flying out with an uppercut and stops Mina from leaving to tell her that it's wrong to sacrifice her love just to watch someone else experience it. The next moment, Mina decides to tell her an embarrassing secret, so they get into the bath, and she starts explaining how she has always been too slow to learn like everybody else. Due to always having to put in 10 times the effort just to be average, she had long accepted that she might never be special at something until the day she saw Noya during the entrance exams. On her way to the exam venue that day, she gave herself a pep talk despite already expecting to fail. But then she heard someone professing love and saw Noya trying to win Saki's heart. After minutes of trying to let him down easy, she gave him a concussion to make sure he remembers the rejection. While this was going on, Mina overheard Shino talking about how he had been asking her out for as long as they have known each other, and Mina initially thought he was psychotic. However, after he continued asking Saki out and refused to accept her rejection, Mina started to respect the amount of effort he was putting in. After the exams, hours later, he was right outside the classroom with Saki, giving her all the validation and support she needed while she continued to treat him like a worthless sack of bones she couldn't seem to get rid of. All this gave Mina a lot to think about on the way home, and she ended up spending the days that followed thinking about him and wishing she had half his level of commitment. On the day results were released, she managed to get in and started praying he would also pass. The next moment, she saw him hugging Saki and expressing how happy he was to be entering the same class as her. While Saki kept trying to reject him, Mina got lost in thought and kept staring until he saw her. She immediately ran off and didn't stop until she got to a corner and realized she was actually in love with him. At first, the idea sounded insane to her because it was clear her heart belonged to another, but she decided to try being as committed as him for once and completely dropped anything about school to spend a few months improving herself. Like all the other times before, she would quickly fall flat on her face, but this time, she refused to give up and actually managed to level up after a couple of months. With her origin story completed, she tells Saki that simply getting to be his girlfriend is more than enough to keep her happy and leaves the bath, while Noya, who has been listening to everything, takes a moment to think about his next move. Minutes later, the girls finish dressing up, and Mina reminds Saki not to tell him about her past, but as soon as she walks out, he tells her that being a slow brain failure should not stop her from fighting for the love they share. As she immediately starts running away, he and Saki chase after her, and they all end up running past Shino and Rika, who also join the race to figure out what is going on. In a matter of seconds, they all end up on the road, but while the girls quickly run out of breath and stop, Noe continues chasing after her and tries to change her mind while she keeps telling him that she doesn't mind being his secret girlfriend. At one point, he drops, and she tells him to give up for once, but that ends up lighting up the fire inside him again. While chasing after her, he asks why she wants to be a side piece, so she explains that fighting for Saki's spot will only cause their relationship to end. Shortly after that, she finally stops running and thinks he has given up, but he catches up to her again and grabs her hand before saying that he has always seen her and Saki as equals. When Mina refuses to believe him and says Saki might decide to leave him, he reminds her of his promise to never give up on the both of them and says he is ready to beg her for months if it comes down to it. Upon seeing that she still has doubts, he pulls her in for a tight hug and assures her that he would never give up on loving the both of them equally. Just then, Saki and the others show up with a cab, and Shino starts demanding to know what kind of relationship they all have again. This time, Mina decides to trust Noya and apologizes to Saki before giving him a kiss on the cheek and saying she is his girlfriend. After a moment of shock, Saki takes a deep breath and officially accepts her as a rival before they all run off to enjoy the rest of the trip. Several days after the fake honeymoon, Shino summons them to her place for an interrogation and says she doesn't want to ask about it in school so they don't get exposed. They all immediately take turns thanking her, but she quickly shuts down the glazing and asks for a sensible answer. However, after several minutes of pointless excuses that make absolutely no sense, she asks if they are at least happy with the relationship. Noya then admits that their talk in the hotel made him realize that dating two girls is not a walk in the park, so he shows her the text he sent to Saki's mom to schedule a meeting so they can have a proper conversation about everything. As Shino asks if he is in the right senses, Saki grabs the phone and deletes the text before promising to break every bone in his face when they get back home. Days later, the new school year begins, and they go right back to their secret lunches. But after Rika shows up to spend time with him, Mina and Saki both decide to express their love instead of fighting. This ends up being the wrong move as Shino also shows up and becomes convinced that he actually wants to start a harem. Will Noyo manage to stay committed to Saki and Mina's, or will Rika eventually steal his heart and V-card as well? That's it for this video. Comment stupid RIZZ if you liked it, and don't forget to turn on post notifications to see more recaps like this.